I've got a follower on X that I've listened to his story a number of times about the nature of the jury pool and how we don't get a jury of our peers most often. In fact, the sort of one of my little catchphrases, I think we're ruled by retards. And it turns out that when you end up in a scenario where you get a bunch of people that are ignorant of the law, their experience of it is being told what the law is by two adversarial parties who are trying to come to this,
they're told the laws by the judge too.
Right, who also seems to, have an interest in the system. They believe in the system. It's not like you get people that come in there that are all X-Files types like me. They're like, I don't trust any of you.
And the judge lies to them.
Because the judge brings bias, and we just acting like we don't have judges with bias. Anyhow, the idea that you would go and put yourself in front of a jury trial with this guy, this is Donut Patrol, who, by the way, credit for the mug. He sent me a new mug that's left-handed, so thank you. It's kind of I was drinking from the other side and I was holding it funny, and I saw in the chat he was like, I am when I've got a microphone on my right side. I'll drink with my left hand because it's just otherwise I'm bumping into the mic all the time, which I don't want to do. So anyhow, the funny thing was I saw him say his story, which was essentially that given an opportunity to face a jury of peers or go in front of a bench trial and put a judge, I'll take the sophistication of a judge to look at the law over this when the judge is acting fairly. And again, that's a crapshoot depending on your jurisdiction. In his case, it worked out in his favor because he assessed what the jury pool looked like and how ugly it is. But we're dealing with a very, very imperfect system, and you're arguing the zealous advocate model is terrible. I think, generally speaking, putting people who are uninformed about the topic and then may or may not have hidden biases going through, the selection process. Is there a better system that you've ever seen that could work? Is there a better way, or are we just doing sort of the lowest common denominator?
Hoo-wee! There's something about getting a mention from someone I respect to no end. What's up, folks? Welcome to the Sharts Fired Podcast with DP. I am your host, Despop, a.k.a. the aforementioned Donut Patrol, and sometimes even double penetration giggity. But my birth name is Johann Pupalot, or maybe it's Jason Semino. Whatever. Today is 21 April 2026, and that was a clip from yesterday's Kyle Seraphin show titled Conviction Vacated with special guest Stuart Rhodes. I want to thank Kyle for the shout out. I can honestly say that if any other major podcaster mentioned me in a positive light, let's say Candace Owens, I'd never fucking brag about it, trust me. Or someone like maybe fake cop Brandon Tatum, I'd say, keep my name out your damn mouth, fool. Kyle referred to my episode last week titled Best Worst System, and I explained some details from my case in that episode. I left a whole lot out on purpose because it's an issue I can hit several times without ever repeating a section. So, Kyle sets up a perfect time to get right back into my case. And it's now time for Case Files with DP. Let me say from the beginning, I was not giving anyone legal advice pertaining to choosing judge over jury. My case was legit retarded, and I still to this day cannot figure out how my grand jury returned a true bill based on the evidence presented. But further than that, my case went on for over 2.5 years before trial. Fucking homicide cases are complete in half that time. My case was assigned to a judge who handled over 2 years of pre-trial conferences. And over those 2 years, you kind of get a feel where the judge's head is at. There were numerous issues my attorney brought up, and the judge agreed they wouldn't be admissible in trial. He seemed to indicate in one way or another, never directly, but he was very interested in how the prosecution was going to prove my guilt, often shaking his head at their pretrial positions. He was well known as a fair judge. Now, in normal circumstances, he would have seen through the case and tossed it at pretrial, dismissing all charges. But this was Rhode Island, the liberal cesspool of the Northeast, and I was a police detective. Because of that, I was going to get no special treatment. No judge up that way would ever want to be seen favoring a cop, even though most of the general public thinks we do get preferential treatment. Nothing could be further from the truth. As a cop, I couldn't get the same courtesy that would have been afforded to a civilian. So, these pretrial conferences go on and on and on. The state and the city kept pushing the case further and further out. They knew I was suspended without pay, and they knew I wasn't doing well. 2 counts of felony assault was offered to me as 2 counts of simple assault and a loss of job. I said no. Then it was 2 counts of simple assault, demotion to patrolman, and 1 year suspension. I said no. Then 2 counts of simple assault, keep my gold shield and detectives, 6-month suspension. Nope. Then finally, 2 counts of disorderly conduct, 6-month suspension, going as time served, a little back pay, and I keep my gold shield. Again, nope. I was living in a mental hell, but I wouldn't buckle. I was innocent. So, after 2.5 years, I finally get what's called a date certain, meaning the trial will start on this date no matter what. It was going to be late May in 2009. Well, on the eve of trial, the court decides to drop a bomb on me and give my assigned judge a big case. This case would take him into the summer recess, and I'd have to come back in the fall. Or another judge has an opening, and we can go right now. Well, knowing how fair this judge was that I was assigned to originally and trusting and how he was ruling on all the pretrial shit, I had decided to go with a bench trial because the grand jury left such a bad taste in my mouth. Now there's this option of a new judge who had zero knowledge of the case. And although I had never been before this judge before in my police duties, he was known as both a liberal and anti-cop. So, my lawyer wasn't allowed to sway my decision on 2 things by law: choosing judge or jury, which was my choice to make alone, and whether or not I would want to testify. He did, however, remind me of how allegedly anti-cop this new judge was. So I had a major decision to make, and it came down to this. Was this judge first and foremost an idiot? I was told he's probably the brightest judge in the state. 2, was he fair? I was told, in fact, he was fair, and he's probably the fairest in the state to a fault. And 3rd, yeah, I'm a cop, but my whole defense was to put the entire police department on trial. A David versus Goliath type scenario. If he hates cops, he certainly hates the infrastructure, and I was going to expose dirty policing like had never been done before. So, I chose a bench trial, and doggone it, I made the right fucking decision. But I do caution anyone in that circumstance to truly get to know the whole system. Do your homework. Like Stuart Rhodes, if I ever had to face a trial in Fed court in fucking D.C. with those bought and paid for corrupt judges, I would choose a fucking jury 11 times out of 10. Full fucking stop. I mean, he was still trying to shovel shit against the tide with that corrupt jury. But you have no chance with a judge in that scenario, especially when the judges know that the real prize is the President of the United States. They will play their part. You can't get to the President without convicting Stewart and Enrique and others in their high-ranking positions in their respective groups. Even though Stewart and Enrique and others had compromised juries, it was their only fucking hope. They had absolutely no hope with the D.C. Fed judge. So, I had to revisit my case on this podcast a little sooner than I wanted to on this very little-known show. But I thank the Emperor of the Bacon Cheeseburger Nationalist Movement for giving me the kick in the ass I need. Thank you, Kyle. And as Kyle told you, bitches, I got a little retirement gig going, making personalized swag. The web store is in my X bio, and it is rocking. Go on and get yourself a personalized coffee mug or shirt and support your homie over here.
Get him, Jay.
I'm not a cop.
You got DP'd.